So this is a little intimidating because you are that girl.
Oh my, are you kidding me? You're amazing. And thank you for coming on before. I'm excited.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. I wanted to talk a little bit about your journey.
Yes.
This month at Woman Evolve, we're talking about surrendering to becoming powerful,
Mm,
which with it being Women's History Month, and we recognize just how difficult it can be for women to create spaces where their voices and ideas are taken seriously and then
yeah.
even propelled into places maybe where they never thought they would be, and
Yeah.
certainly there wasn't any space reserved for them. I cannot think of someone better to talk to than you, as you are not just, first of all, you're a Texas girl, which we love a girl.
What you know about those Texas girls?
What
Tell
you
them
know
about us.
about,
Tell
okay.
them about
We
us. Tell them about us.
But I'm curious just to know a little bit about your journey and the systems that you've had to navigate to get to a place to where you are now, where most people would think, you're one of the most powerful voices in television and you are being so intentional about the conversations you're having. But this was a journey. So can we
Yeah,
talk a little bit about your journey?
of course. And it's still a journey. I'll be very honest with you. Last night, around 2 a.m., I found myself just sobbing. I had a very frustrating conversation with someone who I felt really intentionally, to be honest with you, attempted to diminish me,
Hmm.
attempted to make me somehow feel like the name of the show was like a rental sign. Like I rent the name Tamron Hall, that I'm not Tamron Hall. And it was
Wow.
very fascinating because I'm executive producer and creator of the show. And so often I find myself needing, not feeling like needing to say to people, I am not just a person who walks on camera and says, feed me my lines. I'm not an actress. I'm wholly like you, wholly invested in anything that we do because we recognize the impact of our voice, of the power we project, and what our names mean. And so I was on this call without going into too much detail, but it happened earlier in the day, like 6 o'clock, and then all of a sudden I woke up and I was crying, and I
Mm.
was so frustrated, wondering, when does it when does it stop being so hard, right? When do you have to stop demanding or commanding people to understand you and your power and your worth, and that it is not a, what do they call it? It's not a flex.
Yeah. Right,
It's
right.
your power. And I laughed at some point in the midst of my tears and said, I think that's the battle of a woman. It's the battle of a Black woman.
Yeah.
It doesn't get easier, I don't believe. You learn to deal with it, not suppress it, right? It doesn't mean push it down and just soldier through. But I think you learn tools and mechanisms to allow yourself to soar versus letting it hold you down. You allow yourself to be surrounded by people who will empower your voice and make you feel heard and collaborate, right? There is nothing better for me, Sarah, than getting on the phone with my friends, and we literally collaborate on how I'm going to win and how they're going to win. We laugh, and it is it's so joyful to sit on, especially friends. I've had the same best friend who's in Fort Worth since I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And she's the reason that I'm in TV, because she was the first person to ever beat me running. I ran track. I ran at Poly High School. I ran track my whole life. Summer track. I was the kids that you see the big group in the 9,000-degree Texas heat going to the
Yeah.
Junior Olympics. That was me. And then when my best friend, once we were in high school, beat me, um, it was a wake up call. I was like, okay, I'm not as fast as I think I am. And that was a big pivot, right? At 17, realizing that this dream of being in the Olympics and all of these things that I thought would happen. I knew I was going to be Kari champion. I mean, I'm not Kari Richardson, Shakari Richardson, and we when she
Yeah.
was born, I knew, because I was FloJo, and then I was going to be her. So that dream was, as they say, deferred, and it led me to really hunkering down on journalism and recognizing this gift I believe I have, communicating with people and allowing them to feel safe to talk about their journeys, just as you have with me on the show. So I think going all the way back, I mean, I was born in Luling, Texas, this teeny tiny town right outside of Lockhart in the hill country. My grandfather was a sharecropper who couldn't read. He signed his name with an X. And I grew up hearing that story of this very proud man who raised his children after his wife passed away. My mom was 10 when her mom passed away. And he raised his children and with great pride and great confidence, but couldn't read. I mean, imagine that. He's signing his name with an X, and I make my living with words.
Yeah.
And my mom, who was a 19-year-old single mom who went to Paul Quinn
Yeah.
and found herself returning home after her first year to tell her father that she was expecting a child and what that would look like and what that meant for her, but still soldiering through and moving to Dallas Fort Worth, saying, hey, the opportunities aren't here in Luling. Let me go and let me bet on myself. So much of my journey, honestly, has included moments like that. Women, especially my aunts and folks around me who poured in that bet on yourself mentality. And I think whether it was when I was in local news to Chicago to the Today Show, MSNBC, to where I am now, I wear that bet on yourself on my sleeve,
Mm-hmm.
and it's my superpower.
I think it's so interesting that we know you for your voice, we
Mm,
know you for the way that you show up in our homes, and yet behind the scenes, you're still having to exercise the power of your
mm,
voice. Like, no matter how powerful it is
yeah.
on screen or in our homes, you're still having to introduce and reintroduce
Mm,
who you are in some of those spaces where, conversations are being had. I am curious, do you remember like one of the first times where you had to make a decision to say, like, I'm not going to conform, I'm not going
mm,
to just go with the flow for the opportunity. Like, I'm
yeah.
going to say something, even if this means resistance
Yeah.
or that I become like someone that's considered a problem, because I
Yeah.
have found that I'm writing, well, it's written now, but there's a book that I've written called Power Moves, and
Mm,
I'm trying to debunk this idea that like power just shows up in one expression all of the time. That
yeah.
there are still moments where you have to exercise a different type of power and
Yeah.
still trust that that's power in that moment. And when I hear you speaking up for yourself, demanding that your ideas be honored in these spaces, it's making me wonder, like, did you have to take a chance on doing that? Did you have to bet on yourself in doing
Oh
that?
yeah, and I think sometimes I wish, for example, when I left the Today Show, and made the decision that what they were offering wasn't enough, people would say to me, Sarah, "Oh, she's so courageous," and I said, "I wish it was courage. It was not. It was not." I'm a big back against the wall, right? I
Mm,
make my strongest moves when I feel that I don't have any other option but to run forward, right?
yeah,
I'm not risk adverse to controversy or conflict, but it's not my nature.
yeah.
But when it is time, I was raised to, I talk a lot about, over time, I believe I have great perspective now at 53. Priorities are different than perspectives. And I had my perspectives in my 20s and my priorities rather. And my priorities probably were the club, in 30s, my priorities were something else and maybe this or that. So now my 50s, I don't look so much at priorities as I do perspective.
Mm,
And for me, I had great perspective after losing that job about value, right? Who are you if there's nothing beneath your name, right? If it's just Sarah Jakes Roberts, what does
yeah.
that sound like? What does that feel like? And I, found myself going back to the core of the question. The thing that came to mind when you posed that question for me, Sarah, was when I cut my hair. I remember
Mm,
cutting my hair very, very short and people saying, "You're not going to be an anchor." There's no way. Because back then, in the 90s, anchors weren't wearing their hair short like this, right? I was an outlier and it was all but assured to me I would not be getting a job in TV.
wow.
I kept my hair short and it wasn't an act of, rebellion. It was, I like my hair short. In fact, to be honest with you, my boyfriend at the time loved Anita Baker and I, I loved him. So I figured, let me look like Anita Baker and this is a win here. And, but over time, when I started to interview at TV stations, that was like oh, what's going on with your hair? Why is your hair so short? And that was me claiming my power in this small way. it then turned into me feeling that I would not be controlled to look like everyone else. I was
Mm,
not going to have, I wasn't going to have to assimilate to get this job. My hard work and my determination would pay off. That, going back to, that whole bossy, complicated, difficult, that's when it started. It's
yeah.
suddenly like, well, how dare she not take our advice? And
Mm,
then it turned into me speaking up in the newsroom. I mean, I wrote my crime novel, Watch Where They Hide. And there's a scene with this character, Jordan Manning, who's inspired by my life, where she said, when you are a Black woman in the office, everyone thinks they're your boss, even when you are the boss.
wow.
And so that came from real experiences, or speaking up to my news director at the time in Dallas. There was a description of a suspect and they said 5'4" Black man, dark hoodie. And I said, this could be anybody. This
Yeah.
isn't responsible. And he said to me, well, that's what the police gave us. And feeling so powerless, but then saying, well, I'm not going to read it. And I pour a little of that in that character, Jordan Manning, because I did want people who see my career to see a little bit of what happened. So they asked me, are you ready to write a memoir? I was like, too soon. It's like when Dave Chappelle said they asked him to go on, what was Dancing with the Stars? And he was like, too soon.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the memoir, I'm like, too soon, too soon. But I was ready to create this character that showed you little glimpses of being a Black woman, one of one many times in the newsroom, one of one in a press conference, yelling out
Yeah,
my question.
yeah.
And it's kind of surreal, but I find my boldest moves when I say, fight or flight, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a runner. I'm not a runner.
Me too. I really don't enjoy that about myself. Like
Yeah.
I know that I am fight or flight. I wish I could run, but there is something that happens where I'm like, if we're in it, we're in it. Let's
Yeah.
go.
I am.
And
I'm the same way. I tell my friends, I am that 2 a.m. Let's drive by in my youth. It's like,
yeah, right.
going on over there? Let me see. I'm wired that way. I'm not a runner. But it takes, I give a lot of chances. Even going back to the beginning of our conversation when I was saying I was in tears, I gave that I gave that person multiple times to get that conversation right,
Yeah.
because to your point, I didn't want to have to respond in the way I felt. I was left no choice.
Can I ask you, so we see your power in your career in the way that staying true to that authenticity has paved a way for us to experience different versions of your
Mm.
gifts and talents. How do you feel like your power is different in your more private, personal life without going into
Mm.
detail? Because I know you're
No,
very close.
no, I understand. My husband and we have I feel a great balance, right? I think that he knows who he married, and I
Yeah.
know who I married, right? And he knows that if I come home and there's about two more Amazon boxes empty, I'm gonna go crazy. But he also knows I root in a way for the people I love, that I hope they know, right? In fact, I just told someone the other day about my son, who's going through something, and I felt that he was not, even at age 4, and he's multiracial, but he's a Black child, and he's
Mhm.
a Black boy. And I felt that he was not being treated fairly in a situation. And I had to, quite honestly, remind someone that I'm a mama bear wrapped in a little lion,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm going to protect. So I'm a fierce protector. So in my home life, Stephen is really big on like date nights. I'm not a big date night person. I actually hate date nights because I think it's contrived. I'm a Virgo. I'm like, why do we have to plan it? But
Oh, my husband's a Virgo. God
uh,
bless you all.
we're Virgos. So you already know what he's dealing with. So, I feel like in my home, it's not about power. It's about understanding,
Yeah.
right? And my power is the way I love, and the way I love when I'm mad, the way I love when I'm sad. Um, those are the things that are important in our dynamic in our home. My husband's a 5'5" Jewish manager. When he first hit on me, I thought he was trying to represent me. I'm like, wait a minute now. And it took time for me to even realize he was trying to hit on me. But one of the things that worked so beautifully was the unexpected nature of it.
Mm.
And I just lost my job, and there was the first time I'd been unemployed ever in my life, I worked since I was 14. I worked at Toys R Us in Hurst Euless, Bedford, right in Fort Worth.
You better.
Yes. And so I've never not worked. I was out of a job, and in that loss of what I thought meant so much, I actually gained, again, going back to that word of perspective of what I wanted. And I wanted consistency, not just in my family and my friends, but in my partner. And I
Yeah.
wanted a child. And we set off on this crazy IVF journey and ended up with this little kid named Moses, who's awesome. But
Mm.
in our home life, you know, my power is the way I can love.
Was it hard for you as someone who is driven, someone who's always worked, to I don't even like because I was a single mother when I met my
Yeah.
husband. I bought my own home. Like
Yeah.
I was very established, and
Right.
it's not. I wasn't like I don't need a man, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't need one. Like I had the
Yeah.
option of wanting one, you know. And then when it was time for me to get married, I realized in order for this marriage to work, you're going to have to feel like you need like this is something you really want.
I love that question, Sarah, because here's why. I'm like you. I'm like, I don't need, but true story. I was on the fence about this situation. I'm like, we kind of moved in. We moved in together 3 weeks, almost 4 weeks after our first date. No lie.
Okay.
And here's why.
Oh, wait, what?
Yeah, no, here's why. Here's why, Sarah. So we went out on a date. He said pizza. I was like, great. And I've never told anybody this, but it's the truth. I had cramps, really bad cramps. And I was like, I'm canceling this date. I am dying. Give me Midol, go away. Right. So he was like, no, well, let's walk. You got to get up and go. And I'm like, ah. So I have like no, in other relationships, maybe I was have more pretense but I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
thinking,
yeah.
I don't even know this dude and he doesn't really, well, whatever. And so, we walked, and it was just a beautiful walk to this Italian restaurant in my neighborhood in Tribeca. We walked back, and it was just very comfortable. And I was like, this could be something. But then, greatest story ever. I had my home had an elevator that opened up into the apartment, right? It's one of those like New York style apartments.
Mhm.
I go on the elevator to get ready to go to my dermatologist, and the elevator stops. It has never stopped. I'm by myself because there were only 8 units in my building, and the
Mm.
elevator won't open. And I'm pushing the like help me button. We don't have a doorman. It's true, one of those Tribeca lofty things. And I call him, and I was like, I am trapped in this elevator. And he was at his office, and he was like, I'm on my way. And I was like, can you call 911 and let somebody know? And the reception was terrible. And all of a sudden, in a record lightning period of time, the elevator door starts being pulled open. And I'm like, stop, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. And he goes, give me your hand. And I had, wait for it, a Saks bag with me. And I'm like, wait a minute, my bag. And he pulls me out of this elevator. True story. And he will tell you that I was like, wait, my bag. And I'm trying to get my bag. And I was like, maybe I do need this. You know what I mean? Maybe I do need this. And that's why, you know, with this character Jordan Manning in my crime novel, it was important that I put in that love. I didn't want it just to be
Mm.
a thriller or a mystery. I wanted that romantic side or that desire. The character Jordan Manning is in her 30s, right? Her career is going well, and she's climbing the ladder, and she has her passion, and she's driven to solve this mystery of this woman who's missing. But she wants that consistency. She wants that person who can pull that elevator open and reach in, because I think we all do. I say on my show all the time, I tell people, I grew up, around very strong women who often would say, well, I can do bad by myself, or you can do bad by yourself. And you don't, and I understand that toughening that you need. I do get it. And I know where it comes from. And I'm happy my mom was that way as an independent single mom, and having to bet on herself in this way, and not wanting me to fall into some of the traps of financial dependency and things that can happen when you're riding so hard that they're your train, they're your car, they're your caboose, they're
Yeah, right,
everything.
right, right.
But I tell my friends all the time, I'm like, you know what? If you want to be in a relationship, it's okay to say that. I told my cousin, Kimmy, I was like, you better get on one of these dating sites, one of the reputable, and get out
Yeah.
there. Tell anybody hey, I
I'm
am I
looking.
am interesting. I am looking. And I encourage that, not because I'm married now. I wish somebody had told me that before. Like,
Yeah.
don't just be open to it. Say that's what you want.
Mm.
And that's
I
powerful.
It is because it's owning what you want. And I think
Yeah.
in a world where women are often told what they want or told what they should be happy
Yeah.
to get, to be in a space where you can own what you want and you can put it out into the world and
Right.
not trying to separate yourself from it so you aren't disappointed. I think that's an incredible gift. And I was actually saying, even outside of maybe relationship, like
Yeah.
to own the fact that you want to rest, to own the
Yes.
fact that you want to go out and get something to eat. Like we're always shrinking and diminishing
Yes.
ourselves and pretending like, oh no, I'm very easy to work with. I go with the flow. Sometimes I am the flow, and
Oh,
the
a
flow
hundred
wants to do
percent.
something different today.
Listen, I'll tell you, I love that you said that, because when I first started this show, I had to make some big changes editorially. I needed to make some big changes with staffing that I knew were necessary to make the show better.
Yeah,
And we didn't get to 5 seasons by chance, right? When I launched this show, people told me every single show that was canceled, that was hosted by people way more famous, to
yeah,
basically, remind me that we didn't have a chance. And
yeah,
so I had to make very bold, decisive moves. And I remember my mother calling me after reading some article one day that there just was a horrible person. It was a bloodbath. You fired everybody, which wasn't true. But my mother called me and she was crying and she said, "This is not who you are. And it's making me so mad. Why is it, as a Black woman, you're making these decisions as a woman? And when men change, producers and change people all the time, no one says anything."
yeah,
And I
yeah.
said, "You're right. But you know what? I can take it," because
Mm.
I had gone through enough that I was prepared for that.
Oh,
And
so
that's why I went on my social media and I was like, "Hey, Tam fam, let me tell you what's really happening here. Let me tell you, because we would not be here had I not said, let me continue to pursue a better version of the show.
yeah,
I had one mission in mind: to make the audience proud, to make everyone feel welcome, to have real conversations, and to make you feel like this is where I want to watch the Tamron Hall show. I do like, oh, is that on? Let me just leave it on. No, I
yeah,
want Tamron Hall show to be on. And that took some decisive things. So to your point, I like by the second, first half, we were in a global pandemic. I
hmm,
am in my home. 250 employees are depending on me to figure out how to get this show going. So I was the flow,
yeah. Right, right.
and I said to myself, people tell you to be proud of yourself, and then you're proud of yourself. And then it's like, oh, she's arrogant, or she's this, or she's that, or he's this, or he's that. They assign these things while at the same time literally reading books on how to build confidence. And
Yeah,
it's like,
right,
wait a
right,
minute.
right.
It's like, wait, what? So, I have embraced the fact that being the boss doesn't mean cruelty. It doesn't mean, I have all the answers, but I have to have some confidence in the direction.
It's just, I feel like I'm being mentored and I'm just letting people listen in on it because I'm 35.
Yeah.
I started Woman Evolve and it looks a lot different than what traditional ministry has looked like. And one thing I knew for sure, like, God, if you were going to drag me into this, because I'd rather be introverted, I'd rather be behind the scenes, but something happened when I spoke to women, something happened when I preached a sermon, and I was like, Lord, if you're going to drag me into this, I'm
Mm.
going to do it authentically.
Yes.
And maybe it'll work and maybe it won't, but I do not want to fail at pretending. I will fail at
Yes.
being me all day
Yes.
long. Like, I
You
don't
better
mind if I
tell
don't
them.
work for you, but I cannot twist and contort myself to become someone that is more palatable so that you can say, I didn't like her anyway. Like, if
Yeah.
I'm going down as myself. And that, to me, like, authenticity is your superpower. Like, if you can stand 10 toes down for you, even when you're wrong, apologizing, like, it's not arrogance, but I'm going to stick beside me and
I
I'm
love.
going to run on and see what the end going to be
Yeah.
as it relates to me in this partnership with God. And that is all I can hang on to because if I don't, people are going to put things in my hand that I
Yes.
don't even know if I'm called to carry. Like, I don't know if I'm called to carry this.
I love that you said it, because again, going back to the day that I found out I was not going back to the Today Show, I went into deep prayer. And
Yeah.
people ask me, well, were you mad? There was such a calm. When I tell you, I'm like, I said to the individuals, I have a picture of me and my mom. I have a dress in that closet that belongs to me. I want the picture of my mom and
Yeah.
my dress by this time. Pop, pop, pop. And that wasn't me being arrogant. It was me saying, I'm at peace with this because I've spoken with God. I have gone into this closet and I have emerged at peace with this. So
Yeah.
the next day I donated all my clothes. I wanted to just, it was like a baptism in so many ways. I was like,
Mm.
I'm good. And I started to construct this idea of this conversation and who I would have on and what we would talk about and all of this. And so when it comes time to, you have the ingredients, right? You think you want. Now you're going to build a recipe. And now you're going to say, I need a little more stuff, but I didn't think I need. Okay. And then someone will have the audacity to tell you, no, wait a minute. I sold this show. I went into rooms with people who didn't even want me in there, but had to take the meeting.
Yeah.
I started this show with Harvey Weinstein.
Wow.
3 months in, he is getting ready to go to trial on rape allegations. And now you want me to shrink myself down?
Yeah.
That is not on the recipe list. I'm not
Yeah.
shopping in the grocery store for that level of humility. I
Yeah.
am going to stand, as you said, 10 toes down
Yeah.
and move in. And so, I happen to have a heavier voice. It's so funny because my voice, we were looking at some old tapes of me back then, I don't much like I have a heavier voice. And, people would, well, her tone. And I'm like, I'm literally saying, hi guys, and like, hey, every sentence that I would start out with like, hey, and then if I went in professional, oh, too harsh because you need me to song and dance to make you feel
Yeah.
okay. That's not the job. We're in a global pandemic. I have to make decisive business decisions. I was an anchor and a reporter turned businesswoman because this is a business.
Yeah.
And I needed to make business decisions. And if it required me to come in and do a damsel in distress routine, that was not on the menu. I'm
Yeah.
not serving that up. And to your point, I'd rather fail being true to myself. And of course, as I said, nobody's right all the time. I don't pretend to be. I
Right.
love collaborating. I am a big, we do table reads for our show. We get the scripts together and I sit and I'm reading. I enjoy, I think it's because I ran track and I love that communal energy of things. And I love when people can get around and talk and say, oh, I don't like that. And everybody not run out of the room crying because I always tell people, it's not, this is a team, right? We're together. I'm never going to hurt you. My joy when I retire from this will be to be in, somewhere retired and watching a TV show and seeing the names of the people who worked on my show. A lot of my kids are like in their 20s and 30s. I want to see executive producer. I'm like, I know that they worked on my show as a PA, and I love that. And so I fight hard. I am competitive. I'm not going to apologize for that. I am not going to shrink down. And I'm not, Michelle Obama said, when people say angry Black woman, that says more about you than it does about me. I'm not going to carry
Yeah.
that.
I wonder if they, because there's this idea that women are hard to work with, especially
Mm,
women of color can be
yeah.
hard to work with. And like, are we hard to work with, or do we just take up space? And because it's not as common as
No.
taking up space, that when we take up space, it stands out. Because I do
Yeah, I
think,
think it's easy. I think it's just an easy thing to say.
mm,
Honestly, I addressed it on my show right after that incident. I told you there was some article that said, she was difficult. And it was after Gabrielle Union had been attacked because she was
oh
difficult,
yeah,
allegedly. And I
mhm,
said on my air, does this get old ever? Like, is this, it? I mean, like, you guys have to come up with a new script if you want to get us out of the room. And to your point, that doesn't just relate to Black women or women of color, that's women. I mean,
yeah,
every day there's a woman in an office case in point, my husband and I were talking about someone and an individual, this lawyer referred to her as difficult. And I said, what makes her difficult? And he
yeah,
couldn't answer because he knew where I was going. I said,
mm,
it's a pivot. It's a trope. It's an easy way to say you were uncomfortable because that person likely called you into be accountable, right?
yeah,
So now I am difficult or I am too tough. And I think with women, and this is one of the things, and I know I'm sure you have experienced this. Every woman, I think, in some capacity, where you not only it's like you're the nurturer, you are the I have to do things, there are men who manage, and someone wouldn't dare come in and say, I just couldn't do it today because I forgot.
Right.
Wait, what? So you forgot? And but I'm so lucky to have 5 seasons. I think my team more than ever recognize that I root for them. But going back to what you're saying about the difficult, I just think it's an easy layup.
Yeah.
And it's been
Yeah.
accepted through society for so long that if you say she's difficult to a room of 100 people, you're probably going to win 50
Right.
without even asking why. But now that you have more women in the rooms, more
Yeah.
women who are leaders, that 100 people hopefully will be half women, and they have all been called that. So you've lost half the audience, right?
Right.
And so that's what I think. I think I have a female executive producer, co-executive producer, director, and I'm sure they've all been called difficult. My PR team, I'm surrounded by women like yourself who are uplifters, and that's what I call us. We are uplifters, and that comes with sometimes that label. And I'm okay. To your point, I'm okay in that space.
Mm. Okay, I have one more
Okay.
question to
Yes.
ask you, and then I will reluctantly let you go because and I
Well,
do
you
mean
got to come on the show
reluctantly.
in person. You got to
I would
come
love
on.
that.
I
I
would
would
love
love
it.
that, but I'm going to take advantage of the fact
Okay.
that I have you now.
Yes.
And what is the most powerful lesson God has taught you about forgiveness?
Mm. Wow. My biological father not being in my life,
Mm,
and being raised by my stepfather, who was the father that God meant for me to have, and allowing his journey to be his journey, and forgiving him for not being what I hoped he could be or my
yeah.
mother hoped he could be, but also recognizing I don't have to try to make up that time. So we don't
Mm,
have a
mhm.
big relationship at all, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, but that doesn't mean I don't forgive him because,
Mm,
he too, like my mother, was a kid. And if we are the total sum of even our worst experiences, we're not. None of us are. And so I can't hold him hostage to a mistake as I would not want my son to hold me hostage to any mistake.
man. There's nothing like parenting to
Yeah.
make your soul a little bit more gentle to those who
Yeah.
parented you. I have so much perspective for my parents now. And now I'm raising a 14-year-old girl. I'm
Ooh,
like, it's
good luck. Good luck. Don't tell
it's
her I
a
said
struggle.
it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I want to honor, I know you've got a heart out, but thank you for your time, for your heart,
Anytime.
for your offering to the world, for your leadership. Even those of us who are not in the day to day of what you're doing are being led by your yes. And I just want you to know that it's affecting us greatly and helping us to move forward in our destinies wherever they are. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I just love you to death, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you again.
Me too.